Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing a quick mic check before we start this video. Mic check 2, mic check 2. Alright, let's get this video started, you guys. Alright, you guys, so I'm doing a quick mic check one more time before we get this video going. I'm going to be having to use my Alright, so seems like my audio is working, everything is going good. Just want to do a quick review on Nasdaq, right? We're going to be looking at Nasdaq futures chart today, going over the price action from January the 9th, 2026, right? We're looking at Nasdaq futures MNQH to 2026, right? 2026. Now, before I get into this video, you guys, right, there are some important things that I want to cover, because if you're like just now tuning into my channel, I want you to be able to keep up, because a lot of people who've been watching my videos have been watching at least for a year, so they know at least something, right? Something about my process, right? And I do use ICT concepts. I am not ashamed to admit that. I started having success when I started to use ICT concepts, right? I started to have success then, and then now, pretty much after just receiving a 5-figure payout, I feel like what I'm focusing on more this year is just risk management. I feel like I can find good trades. I know I'm going to find a good trade. I know I'm going to find a 2-to-1, a 3-to-1, a 4-to-1, right? I know I'm going to find good trades, but I think it's very important to just, right, not get too excited when I'm in the marketplace. All right, so let's go over today's price action. I don't want this video to be too long. All right, don't want this video to be too long. So where do we start, right? Let's start on the daily time frame, of course. Let's start on the daily time frame. Right, and then I'm going to try to take you guys through my thought process and the trades that I took. So essentially, I did take a small red day today on my prop firm accounts, but I made about like $200 on my real account. So you know, I just, after getting back to break even, I was like, I'm done. I'm tired. You know, I closed the week out green, so I just wanted to be done. And, you know, just get it over with, right? So actually, we're going to start on the weekly, by the way. Let's start on the weekly, because, right, we had already swept this high on the weekly, right, going into Friday. And the same thing that I do with daily bias is what I do with the weekly bias, right? Or just daily bias, weekly bias. But just the same thing, I use this liquidity, right? So when I see these highs up here get taken and the market is not showing a willingness to drop off, then I know that we're going to continue to go up, right? And you can see the same thing on a daily chart as well. All right, you can see the same thing on a daily chart. Let me zoom in. I know my chart is messy. Y'all really got to work with me. All right, I'm not deleting nothing off my chart for nobody, right? So don't even ask about it. If you don't want to look at this chart, that's fine, right? But I'm going to show you, I'm going to teach this the way that I feel like it needs to be taught, right? I rock with ICT, but you know, ICT, he's obviously like on a whole different level, right? So his charts are going to look clean, right? His charts are going to look clean. Me, I really want to like help as many people as I can. So I really want to show you guys everything, right? So my charts are going to be messy, because I really want people to understand that trading is a real thing. You can really make money from trading, right? This isn't child's play, right? But let's get back to the price action. Oh, somebody's calling me. Oh my gosh. So let me put my phone on do not disturb. Believe it or not, that's actually my job. It's like I can never get a break from work. But anyways, right, so looking at the daily time frame, notice how we did not break out the bottom, right? So we broke out the top of the daily chart. And then when we broke out the top, the market wasn't really showing us a willingness to go lower, right? It wasn't showing us a willingness to go lower. And we're going to see that as we drop down into the lower time frames, right? We look at the 4 hour, right? We look at the, matter of fact, let's first hide. Let's first hide my drawings and everything. How the hell? Somebody drop a comment down below. How do I hide the drawings on here? I'm so new to everything. I need help. Bro, what's good, Brody? I'm glad to see you in the chat. I'm just doing a quick little breakdown. We had a green week this week, bro. We had another green week. Didn't really do that good Friday, but it was pretty much like a break-even type of day. So I'm just going over the price action with everybody right now, right? So I'm going to just go straight into the lower time frames because I want to keep this video quick, you guys. You know, it's almost 1 a.m. and I'll be honest, I'm tired. I worked all day yesterday and pretty much didn't even have a break, right? So let's go into the 5-minute time frame, right? So first off, these yellow lines on my chart, you guys, as you guys can see, I have them labeled, right? So this is the midnight open. This is the Asian range high. And this is the Asian range high from a different day, right? So essentially what I go do is I make sure I mark out those Asian range highs and lows, right? And the reason why is because if you guys can see, right, look at how it hit this. Let me zoom in on this for the people who don't have the best, you know. I want you to really see this, right? Look at this. Look at how the price went right below the midnight opening price from December the 31st, right? This is December 31st. And this happened today, right? So you could have bought that if this was something that, you know, you're comfortable with and this is something that you're back testing, right? But obviously you have to get used to using the midnight opening price, right? For those of you who do not know what the midnight opening price is, it's all it is the midnight open, right? That's literally all it is. It's when it's the first tick, right, at midnight, right? That's how we get our midnight opening price. And what I typically do to find the midnight opening price is I'll go to the 1 hour time frame, right? So this one comes from December the 31st, right? And sometimes I'll make sure that I put the date on these because I want to see how much is the market going to still want to use these time frames, right? So I always make sure I put the date on them. Not all the time, I'll be honest, not all the time, but sometimes I'll do it, right? If I feel like it's going to be significant, I'll leave it on there and I'll make sure I put the date. Okay? So we're using the midnight opening price, and then we're using the London and the Asian session lows and highs to determine our liquidity, right? Everybody knows that. This is real basic stuff, right? I'm not teaching nothing new, right? And I'm going to delete all of these lines off of my chart. The yellow lines, I don't typically keep them on my chart forever. But like new week opening gaps, stuff like that, I tend to keep those on my chart. Opening range gaps, stuff like that, I tend to keep those on my charts as well, right? So let's continue to drop down into a lower time frame because we're going to be breaking down the price action from Friday, right? All right, so this is about where the market opened. I want to put a horizontal. Let's put a horizontal line. I mean, not a horizontal, a vertical line right here, so we can never get mixed up, right? So this is about where the market opened. You guys can see pre-market. We had some news. We had NFP news today. So that started to send the market up. Now I'm going to give you guys a gem right here on how you could have possibly traded the pre-market news if you're that type of person. Me, I'm not trading pre-market. As a matter of fact, I'm making it a really big goal of mine this year to not trade pre-market and not trade the evening session because I'm transitioning into a profitable trader. I really want to trim out as much fat as I can, right? I really want to lock in and make money, right? I don't want to play games and try to be cool and all of this other stuff, right? I'm really here to kill it every week if I can. All right, but I'm going to give you guys a gem, right? So this Asian high right here that we had marked out. Let me zoom in. We had this Asian high marked out. In the Asian session, by the way, for those of you who do not know, the Asian session starts at 8 p.m. and it ends at midnight, right? So how do you go and find the Asian session? Well, if you're on TradingView, right, you see I have a vertical dotted line and I have a horizontal dotted line. When I put them over a candle, right, at the very bottom down here, right, at the very bottom down here, you can see the time. Now we're on military time, but we're on the New York session time, obviously, right? So you can go find your Asian session by just simply going, it's going to be 20, right? 2000 or whatever, but it's 8 p.m., right? This is just the military time, right? Don't get confused by that. But essentially, I went in this session and I found my high, right? The high is right here. We marked that right there. This is the high for the Asian session. And then this is the low for the Asian session, right? So I just marked those out. I put a yellow line on those, right? Stick with me, you guys. I'm about to give y'all a real cool gem right here. So one thing about liquidity, right? This is like a really big ICT gem. I don't even know how much ICT talks about this. JCap just made a video about this. If y'all don't follow JCap, you're just crazy at this point. Right? This guy just got a $2.4 million payout with Apex. Right? That's huge. Do y'all know how hard it is to get a payout in general? But to get a payout with Apex is just absolutely crazy, right? That's another story. But I just wanted to reference that because, I'm here for you guys, right? I'm not just here to say only, watch my videos and only subscribe to my channel. I just want to put you guys in front of the right information. If y'all don't want to watch my channel, that's completely fine with me, right? I just want you guys to win in life. That's really all I want. All right, so let's get back on track. So this is our Asian high. So when the market comes up here and sweep this high, right, we swept it once, we swept it twice, reject it, we swept it 3 times, reject it, and then notice right here, the fourth time, when we swept it, notice how we made this fair value gap. right? We made a fair value gap right above. This is a breakaway gap, right? All of these are breakaway gaps. So if you're the type of person who wants to gamble, I'm not going to really call it gambling because honestly, this is a pretty decent trade idea, right? But you have to wait for confirmation. You have to wait for this fair value gap to form above this Asian session high, right? And when it's formed, the trade for me would have looked something like this, right? I would have put my stop loss in here. I would have maybe used that one. Maybe I would have used this one, right? Just to be all the way safe, I would have honestly probably would have used this breakaway gap all the way down here. But to be honest with you, you really can use this, right? Because we're trusting that this is the price isn't going to come back down here, right? And then what is your target? Well, obviously we had this Asian session high from January the 7th that was never hit, right? So this was my original target for today, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Just try to keep up with me for now, all right? And then notice right in here is where we got the 8:30 news, right? So I'm just saying that was a potential trade idea. That's all I'm trying to show you guys is how you can use these Asian session highs and Asian session lows, right? Same for the London high, London low. You're using these points of interest to like wait and see if the market is going to break above or not, right? Because think about it right here, when it don't make the fair value gap, right? Let me zoom in for you guys. Right, this little area right here is a fair value gap. Right, if you don't know what that is, we'll have to touch on that in a later video. But just think about this expansion, right? Look at all of these green candles. Right, so notice how we don't make that gap right off the rip. So even all of these are potential sell ideas, right? Sell ideas. And then you're probably asking yourself, well, what is this blue box on my chart? Hopefully you was asking, what is the blue box? Well, this blue box is the first presented fair value gap, right? Another ICT concept that I talk about all the time on my channel. And I tell you guys all the time, leave it on your charts, right? Some of you guys think y'all are actually ICT. You're not, right? I'm sorry to tell you that you gotta put some respect on the guy who's been trading for 30 plus years, right? That's a long time to be trading. And trading is stressful. I mean, think about that, right? So leave these first presented fair value gaps on your chart, right? You don't really have to leave the Asian high and low. So like after I'm done with this video, I'm going to delete these Asian highs and low. The only time I leave those on my chart is if, is if they wasn't taken yet, right? But I refresh them every day. I don't just leave them on my chart. Now, the midnight opening price, I leave those on my chart, and I'm going to show y'all why here in a bit. I just wanted to give y'all this quick little example of showing y'all how this little pre-market idea right before the 8:30 news, right? Because this was the 8:30 candle right up in here, because we are on the 5-minute chart, right? You could have got in there a little bit early and then rolled that up, right? That's just a technique, right, of reading price. That's all it is, you guys. It's just price action. You don't need an indicator to do that. You don't need anything. All you need is some boxes and some lines. That's it. You don't really need all of this fancy stuff, pivot points and all of this. It's just a bunch of BS, right? But I didn't take this trade. I'll be honest, right? And that, like I said, I didn't take it because I really want to be disciplined this year and try not to trade pre-market, especially ahead of news, right? Because even though I seen this and I was like, man, I should be getting in there, I was like, at the end of the day, you still don't know what the hell can happen, right? If they drop in NFP news at 8:30, even though based on all of this information I just gave you guys, we should continue to go up. At the end of the day, you still just never know, right? So that was the pre-market, right? And that was how I used the Asian session high to read price action. So, and that is essentially what I'm going to do with all of these Asian highs, right, and London highs, and Asian lows and London lows, right? That's all I do with those when I'm reading price with those, right? So I'll give you another example. Okay, I'll give you another example, but this time we're going to drop down into the 1 minute time frame, because now we're going to get into when the market has actually opened up, and I really want to be able to break this down bit by bit for you guys, because there's so much that happened on the 1 minute time frame today, right? Right, so this is when the market opened. So when the market first opened, you guys can see right up in here, this is pre-market. We was going up. We bounced right into the top of this opening range gap. That's what this white box is. And this purple box right here is just simply a fair value gap on the 8-hour time frame. I'm not even going to show you guys that. If you guys want to go see that, y'all got to go look at that for yourself, right? But that is where that purple box come from. You should definitely go look at it on your own chart for learning purposes, I believe. All right, now I have to reposition myself. Okay, here we go. Okay, so pre-market, we went up, we came all the way back down. So what does that tell me? That's telling me right off the rip that it's NFP, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth, right? Because think about this. We did all of this that I just explained to y'all. We went up as if we was just getting ready to take off, right? And just start working our way up into the opening range gap. That's what it was starting to look like at first. But the moment you see all of this, it comes down and do all of this. Mind you, it did this before the market even opened. So you're already getting a lot of price action before the market even opens, right? So you know, or you should know, and if you didn't know it today, eventually experience is going to help you realize this, right? That it's going to be a really swingy day. And obviously NFP, most of you who trade, y'all already know NFPs, it's not all the time, but most of the time it's going to be a really crazy day, right? So market drops down. Where did we go? We came down here to sweep this yellow line, which is what? The London low, right? And that was the one that was made Friday morning, right? The London session is from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. So this was the London low that was made Friday morning, and it was taken during the New York session, right? So that is one thing you have to understand. The Asian session builds out liquidity for to be swept usually during the London session, and then the London session creates liquidity that more times than not will be swept during the New York session, and that is what we were able to see right here, right? We swept this liquidity, then we instantly come back up. We made a breakaway gap, right? Meaning what? We're moving really fast to the upside, right? I told you guys this Asian session high right here, this was my liquidity. This was my target for the day. And I didn't have it figured out at first. I'm going to be honest. I did not have it figured out at first. And as a matter of fact, the first trade that I took was a loss, because what I was thinking about when the market first opened, right? We started to sell off aggressively, really fast, right? So I missed this big sell-off. So when the market opened, I'm thinking we had already swept this high, this London high. We made our fair value gap, right? We may want to start taking off to the downside. The only problem that I had was that we didn't make a fair value gap under this Asian range high as well. I would have wanted to see a fair value gap made under both the London high and the Asian high. And then I would have. So essentially, I got too excited. I took a trade really early in the day. I took a trade pretty much right here, right as the market opened. As it pulled back up a little bit in here, I think I put my stop loss like right above this candle right there. And then eventually I just got stopped out, as you guys can see. So initially I didn't really have a good, read on the market. And then, after a while I started to realize, okay, this market is starting to look like it wants to buy up, because if it's not wanting to go down, okay, well, where does it want to go? Obviously, it's wanting to go up. So the next question I asked myself was, where is the liquidity, right? Where is the liquidity? And the only thing I can think of was this Asian high that was not yet taken, right? And this is from January the 7th, 2026. I don't know why I got 25 in there. Right? So it took me a while to get a read on the market, but eventually I did get a pretty good read. So I lost about 1% on my account, because that's another thing we could talk about as well, you guys, is risk management. I was risking about 1%. So I only lost 1% on this trade. And then when they gave me a dip, right? Because like I said, I was looking for the market to go up at this point. So when I took a buy off of this order block, I didn't have the best entry. I kind of got filled like maybe right up in here somewhere. So I did experience some down draw. I had my stop loss right below there. So I really wasn't feeling like I was going to get stopped. The market went up, came down, went up. I got out pretty much right here. Right, I got out right here, and then that was a trade that pretty much got me to break even, right? Because this was just too choppy. I wanted these two green candles to really keep going. The moment they started to pull back and, act a little choppy, when they gave me another chance to get out, I got out immediately, right? Because there's a little 1 minute order block right there. And as you guys can see, that 1 minute order block held price down for a while, right? Eventually, price did go down. We swept this liquidity, right? We swept this liquidity, which was, London low, Asian low. And then what do? We went right to what? The midnight opening price from December 31st, you guys. If y'all don't have this on your chart, you would have never knew to take this entry. Now at this point, like I told you guys, I took a loss. I was taking a sell. So I lost 1%. Then I took a buy on this dip. I made it back. And at this point, I'm green on the week. So I was tired. I'm not going to lie. I worked all week, truck driving. We went all the way to Florida, came back. So I'm not going to lie. I was tired. And I didn't want to deal with the chop. But I wanted to open up all of my, apps again to take this trade. But I just didn't. I wish I would have, because it worked out so perfectly. But essentially, I'm just trying to show you guys how you can use the midnight opening price to, catch wick entries. Because, just look at this entry right here. Almost no down draw, right? And even if you don't catch it right at this point, once it starts to come all the way back up aggressively, you can put your stop loss right in here, right? You could put your stop loss right in there. You have to trust one of these breakaway gaps, because it's going to give you some good risk to reward. So let's say you get a super late entry, right? And then you put your stop loss in there, and then you target the Asian high that I was telling you to target, right? That's almost a 3-to-1 risk to reward ratio. So you don't have to have the perfect entry. Obviously, the more you use these concepts, you can eventually learn to take a very small position somewhere down here just to make sure, it's going to come back, right? And if it don't come back, you take a small position so that if you lose, you're not blowing your entire prop firm account, right? It's not making you super emotional, right? You can handle the down draw. But even if you don't catch a wick entry down here, me personally, I would have, caught this also because of this liquidity right here, right? So not only is we coming down and touching this midnight opening price, we're sweeping liquidity, right? Look, we got liquidity here. Let me put this in the circle. All right, we got liquidity here. All right, we got liquidity here. So that's why I was saying I was a little bit disappointed that I was too lazy to, get into this trade. It wasn't that I was too lazy. I was just exhausted. Y'all know trading is so exhausting. But if you're up on a week and it's a Friday, for at least for me, sometimes I'm like, I'm done. I'm tired. But this was another trade idea, right? At this point, I'm done. But as I just told you guys, y'all can put y'all stop loss right here in the breakaway gap. So even if you miss all of this, right? Even if you miss all of this, when price comes down here, all right, let's say you don't even get a perfect entry. Same thing, stop loss in the breakaway gap. Even if you just target this high right here, the most recent high, that's almost a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio. Obviously, if you have the open and range gap on your chart, which you should, especially if you're using ICT concepts, maybe you say, okay, I'm going to target the midpoint, give myself a little bit more, risk to reward. That's almost a 2.5 to 1 risk to reward ratio. And eventually it gives it to you. Right? So this is how, you end up completing your phase 1, your phase 2. You really don't have to do too much. Sometimes you make mistakes like I did. Like I said, I lost 1% and then I gained it back and I caught it. I said, you know what? I'm done for the day. I could have got back in and made, maybe another 2%, but at the end of the day, I'm not tripping. I've been funded with Alpha Capital for at least, I think it's almost 3 months. Almost 3 months. I'm working on my second payout. I'm up about 1% on my FTMO account. And then we're pretty much still at break even on our 200K Funder Pro account. But I'm just trying to essentially show you guys all of the different trade ideas, right, you could have had just in this one day alone, right? And obviously you're not going to catch them all and you're not going to be right all the time. But if you're managing your risk right, you're going to be profitable, because that's how I was able to take a loss, but then I was able to still go for break even on the day, right? But on the week, I'm in green on all of my accounts on the week. So, that was pretty much the trade idea, you guys. And then obviously, for the rest of the day, it pretty much did nothing. It just worked this way inside of the open and range gap, fell just short of the top of this open and range gap. And then we also have a new day opening gap that's up here as well. So it fell just short, and then it sold off to close the rest of that day out. All right. So that was pretty much that Friday. I had to break it down on a 1-minute time frame. I didn't really want to, get into the whole like how to find the open and range gaps. Most of y'all already know all of that. And if you don't, just leave a comment down below. Let me know. I'm always happy to go over it again, because I really do want as many people to learn this stuff as they can possibly can, bro, because it's life changing. This is truly life changing stuff. Like, I just got a 5-figure payout from one prop firm account. So, once I get funded with, let's say, 3 or 4 prop firm accounts at the same time, all I have to do then is the same thing that I've been doing, right? So you take that $13,000 payout and you multiply it by 4, right? Now instead of 13,000, it's almost 50 plus thousand in one payout. Then on top of that, we have a real account that we're building as well, right? So even on a real account, we made like 500 plus to this week, right? So we absolutely killed it this week. I can go over other trades. I don't even think I'm going to be able to remember every trade I took this week just right off the rip like that. But that was pretty much Friday's trades, you guys. So make sure y'all drop a like on this video, man. As y'all can see, I'm trying. I got my camera set up now. Life is good. We use the payout to get this PC so that I can make better content for y'all and, try to engage more with my audience and teach you guys, in a better manner as well, you guys. So make sure y'all drop that like button, subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate that. And I will see y'all in the next video, man. Peace out.